Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Today's program dedicated to Topaz the Wolf, who had a little procedure at the vet today to clean his doggy teeth, and he was under anesthesia for a period of time. And come here, Topaz. He's right back there. I'll tell you, he's an amazingly robust dog. You got to give it up for Topaz. Matter of fact, the one person in the chat room, give it up for Topaz the Wolf. All right. Oh my God. I against my better wisdom, I go on Twitter and I read the most ridiculous things and say, these people cannot be serious. I mean, I'll start with it this way. The Boston Celtics have lost 3 of their last 5 games, and it's not like they're losing to the teams that are like the big time players in the league. I mean, it isn't like they have back to back games with under the national microscope against the team with the best record in the NBA. It's nothing like that. I wanted to share with you, because I really wasn't sure I was going to pull this up, but at the last minute, there's no real preparation, for the show. I just go on and do what I do. And honing in on the Celtics, basically, they lost to Oklahoma City. All right. But you didn't really hear anything about it. It was an easy 105-92 loss at Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City was up by more than the 13 that they ended up winning by. They beat Denver. They lost to Sacramento. They beat New Orleans, who anyone could with a billy club or with their bare hands. And they lost to the Toronto Raptors that we beat. All right. So these games were, they lost at home, excuse me, to the Sacramento Kings. They barely beat the Pelicans. Yes, that's the same Pelican team that Zion Williamson isn't going to be playing for. So they won 120 to 119 and barely pulled it off. Then they come back at Toronto and they lose by 13 points. Now, you don't really hear shit about that, do you? And I guess this is my point in all of this, so that you know where I'm coming from early on. You cannot have unequal standards. You have to have standards, or else you have no credibility whatsoever. And then you have the people who are the so-called hosannas. Yeah. I mentioned the last show you had the Cavs are going to come back to earth and lose 3 out of their next 10, then get back on the path again. You see, I predicted, Why is this so repetitive? It comes out of like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people's mouths. Is it just the times we're living in? Stop that. Let's examine calmly what happened against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And, I understand that there are symptoms like way too many turnovers and air balls and all that stuff. But why? Why did it happen? And what can the Cavaliers do about it? And what can Kenny Atkinson do about it? What we are seeing, and it's not just from the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's from all of our opponents lately, they are pressuring the ball handler in the half court, coming up the court, full court presses that are, in essence, zone presses that force passes up the floor that are being deflected or intercepted and turn into fast break, easy points. Teams are turning up the tempo and relying on the Cavaliers to make turnovers. And you're right, Ron, way too many turnovers. But this is the new way that the league has figured out how to deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I just want to be honest and say why I think that's the case. First of all, you have Darius Garland, who is your primary point guard, but they're really trying to keep Garland's minutes at around 30 to 32 minutes a game because of his penchant in the past for injuries and the fact that he's playing a much more physical brand of basketball, both defensively and offensively. So that means there's less time for him on the floor. The lineup that seems to be really getting screwed is when Karis LeVert comes in the game and Max Strus comes in the game. People are pointing out that Max Strus is starting to make three-point shots. Well, he is, but he can't handle the basketball. When he's forced to dribble the ball up the court, he has a bad handle and he tends to panic with the basketball. He is not a ball handling guard. We didn't have Ty Jerome because of sickness in the last couple of games. That did not help us either because he is our secondary ball handler. Then you have Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell we'll talk about in a minute because he's in the midst of a shooting slump and having some difficulties right now. And there may be certain reasons for that I'll explore in just a little bit here. So you have Max Strus, you have Karis LeVert, who just dribbles the ball too high. Evan Mobley can bring the ball up the floor when nobody's pressuring him, but with his high dribble, it's just going to be a steal every time. Hi, Christopher Milton. How you doing? So right off the bat, the weakness that teams find is that a lot of the shooters, and Sam Merrill would be another one of them, although I'm not sure you call him a shooter at this point in time. He's having his fair share of problems too, because he's playing much more defense and moving his feet more. And that seems to making him a little bit more of just a guy who throws up threes kind of guy. It's an evolution and it's a conditioning issue there. And his shot doesn't look right. But at any rate, he is not a primary ball handler. So when you're resting somebody like Darius Garland and you are not at full strength because your secondary ball handler, Ty Jerome, is either out or just coming back from illness, there is no downside to pressuring the Cavaliers. In this instance, everybody came into the game saying, well, Isaiah Hartenstein is not going to be playing, so we have to go down low, down low. Right off the bat, the Thunder won the game, okay? The team that forces the opposition into a certain strategy has an advantage, especially on their home court, and especially when they're hungry, and especially when they shoot 60%, and especially when Lou Dort is throwing things in from the nearest ocean, which would be the West Coast in this example. They had a great game. I take nothing away from the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're a fine basketball team. They're well coached. SGA is a fine player. But if they played like this all the time, they would be a much more potent offensive team. What you saw is what they do defensively. They scrap, they hustle, they play hard. It played right into the wrong hands, with the Cavaliers going in saying, well, you've got to focus on Jared Allen, got to focus on Mobley and get that ball to paint because Mobley doesn't shoot threes that well. Immediately, the game was lost. Because on this particular night, they were throwing in threes like there was no tomorrow. They were doing everything right, and they were pushing every right button. There are games like this, folks. On any given night, a team can just turn it on and shoot 60+% from the field, 60% from three-point range with their starting players and even their top 2 or 3 bench guys. And if they're playing hard defense and they still have a +6 when SGA comes out of the game, everybody is just high watering. They're just played a great game. Cavaliers, meanwhile, realized that just throwing the ball into the big men one-dimensionalized their offense. The way the Cleveland Cavaliers win, and I'm not going to sit here and go over this 10 times, but you don't have to be a genius to figure it out, is sharing the basketball. That's the key, is ball movement. It isn't standing out and dribbling at the front like we were seeing in last night's game, waiting for the big to come out and come into the middle. And that's not the way we play. It's much more quick forming. If the guy in the big, if it's Jared Allen or if it's Mobley, comes into the paint, he immediately looks. If he doesn't have a shot, he's going to kick it out to somebody who can throw in an outside shot. And it didn't help us that we could not hit a three to save our souls. So to have a game in which Oklahoma City is beating the Cavaliers by 40 points is an unusual circumstance, and it's not something that is to be concerned about in the way that Cleveland fans always play into what the national media wants them to, because they're weak-souled ninnies. Not the networks. They're smart and make a lot of money. The fan base are weak-souled ninnies. All right? And again, you got to have stronger stones than this, because you play one bad game. A team's not entitled to play a bad game or to run into a freight train. It happens. Did the Steeler fans back in 2020, when Baker was the quarterback, say, we're going to go down 28-0 in this one? Big Ben's going to get the ball snapped over his head in the first play. He's not going to try to recover it. And from there, it's going to bulge to 28-0. I predicted that, Amsterdam said. I predicted that a few days ago. And it's like, no. That shit just happens. It's like organic. Give the team that won credit. They didn't have their top scorer, and everybody stepped up, and that's what they're supposed to do. And that's what's been happening for the Cavaliers all season, too. And now the fans are not good anymore. And TNT puts the little caption up of some idiot Cavalier fan who writes on the internet the exact thing they wanted to see. No, TNT's never going to show us again. And I hope that person gets hit in the back of the head by a flying frying pan and he never regains brain function. What an idiot. They're not going to show us again. You're our master, TNT, national media. We have no soul of our own. I can't stand that. That is such loser talk. You've got the team that has the best record in the NBA, and nobody thought it was going to happen. So, into a life a little rain must fall. It's and Christopher, you have to do what you have to do. You put it behind you and you get ready for Saturday's game against the Timberwolves, and you make adjustments. And this is the other thing that, Mr. Prediction here, 3 for 15 from Mitchell, and I'll immediately blip that off the screen because, again, stop and think about the role that Donovan Mitchell is being asked to play. He is the primary guy and has been for every other season he's played in the NBA except this season. And it's easy to say, I believe in my teammates and, I get extra rest. I play less minutes and it's all good with me. I'm glad to be here in Cleveland. The fact of the matter is you're going to have times when your floor time is not as great. You're not going to play as many minutes. You're going to have a bad game. You're going to hit a bad patch. And who knows if there's a physical reason behind this or if it's a mental kind of thing right now. Because, he looks like he's forcing his way down the lane. And the thing, and I see Steven here, so I'll pop him in real quick. The thing with Donovan Mitchell is it looked to me like he was pressing to go to the basket and he wasn't going to get fouls. Let's be honest. That's not, again, the way that you're going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder is to say, well, I'm going to pound my way into the paint and Lou Dort's going to kick me in the ball 6 times and I'm going to get the call. It's not going to work that way. Sometimes what sets up Mitchell's game is the ability to knock down that step back 3. And when you have to respect that, then you lose your first step and he drives around you and beats you to the rim. In this instance, what the Oklahoma City Thunder did, they didn't have any big man in the game, but they were still dropping off smaller guys to make sure that they let the game start. Mitchell wasn't making shots, and then he starts forcing his way into the lane, and they started making his life miserable in there, and he looked like a pinball. And he was not taking good shots. He looked like he was frustrated and flustered. And you're going to have nights like this. For his part, Darius Garland played well. But I can't say that anybody else really did. Oh, by the way, part of the can't dribble brigade would be George Niang, who you don't want handling the ball either. So to be constructive about this, I can say that whether the Cavaliers, I know that we're going to win 70 games. I don't give a shit about that. It's all about what happens in the postseason. Nobody's asking if the Celtics are going to win 70 games.
Facts.
I mean, that's just setting somebody up for a fall. The way I look at it, that's the way that it operates. They wanted to be able to go on the air and see the Cavaliers humiliated. They were happy as larks. They were chirping. That's how happy the TNT crew was. But this is, if you believe the Cavaliers, what's coming out of their mouths, let them know. You have the opportunity to prove that you bounce back and that you have the right stuff. And that's what a season is all about. And I don't care how many wins they end up with at the end of the season. It's how healthy we are and how we prove resilience, because it's resilience that will win playoff games. It's funny because I've seen a bunch of Cavaliers fans who are saying that one was playoff intensity and the Cavs folded again. It's like, well, what about the last one in Cleveland that we beat their ass? Are your memories that short? I mean, do you have some kind of a problem that you can't remember what happened a short while ago? That game in Cleveland under the spotlight was a must win because it was an unveiling of sorts of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they held their water and they won the game, and both teams played well. Both teams were shooting 60% from the floor, and the Cavaliers won the game. But nobody's referencing that. They're only referencing last night's game. Give the team an opportunity to bounce back and prove the point that it's not the same old Cavs. I know that's the famous line for all sports fans, include same old. It's like, you're the same old douchebag fan. That's what's the same old. And I'm going to say something on air because there's one person who's on Twitter, Mac Perry, who does a lot of shows on Twitter. And he is a relentlessly positive fan. So much so that sometimes I'm like, oh, come on. Don't tell me that Tyson is going to be a star, and I kind of get on him for that. But something, the more that time goes on, I appreciate that guy because he's like a breath of fresh air. And it's like all this negative, whoa, Nelly, we're in trouble. We're on the verge of a collapse. It's the start of a pattern, And after the game, I was reading what Mac Perry was writing on Twitter, and he was saying this was a bad loss. we're going to have to see, man, how this team moves forward now. And it's like, don't lose your positivity. You know, it's like, you're an icon to me. Don't do that. Don't let this negativity eat you alive, because it's just a thought of the moment. Yes, the Cavaliers played horribly, but the Thunder played great. Give credit to where it's due. They played as great a game as they will ever play this year. I guarantee you. They will never have that kind of three-point shooting from guys coming off their bench that nobody's ever heard of, or from Lou Dort, or you know, SGA, we know he can just rein them in, but he's not even a great three-point shooter. But my goodness, everything they were throwing was going in. So every team should be entitled to that. And we've seen Cavalanches night after night after night. So you got buried by thunder and lightning. It happens. They're a really good team, just like Cleveland's a really good team. And one team is capable on any given night to be able to do what they did to us.
They both got the same record, 34-6.
Yeah.
And nobody really talks about the Thunder winning it all either in the West. So
No.
Really everyone's talking about Boston. I mean, that's really, Boston's most likely going to repeat. That's all I'm hearing. So
yeah, well, that's the message they want to spread. But again, what I said at the top of the show, Boston has lost 3 of their last 5 and lost to lousy shit teams. And nobody's saying a thing. Because, oh, well, they won it last year. Well, last year doesn't mean dick. And I hate to say this to fans who keep saying, well, that's what the Cavs lost in the first round last year, or, you know, or the second round last year, and barely got by the Magic in the first round. They fall apart. You know, that's what happened last year. Well, last year doesn't mean dick. And you're going to find that out, because the Celtics are not a dynasty team. If they were a dynasty team, they wouldn't be losing to the Pelicans at home. Okay? If you lost to the fucking Pelicans at home, that would be so much worse than what happened last night. Let's be real about it. Because you have to try to lose to the Pelicans, who are trying to lose, and they're sick of Zion Williamson. That was a huge Deshaun Watson-esque draft pick for them. He's taken that whole organization down the toilet because he refuses to get into shape.
And what was the organization thinking for giving him that raise to begin with in that extension?
They rewarded him for not working and not taking care of his health. And I'll tell you something else. If you look at Jokic, he's not going to have a long career either, because he's eating and drinking his way out of the league. All right?
Yeah, I see that.
That's just the fact. Great ball player, make no mistake, but he's not going to have a long career. That can't be a dynasty team. To be a dynasty team, you got to have a lot of pieces. You know, to be a dynasty team, you got to have like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson, and you got to have, you know, the people who run the floor and the people who play hard-nosed defense, and you got to have a whole, just a combination of elements. And it's hard to have a franchise that is like dominant. And you see what happens. They all get old. And right now, there is none that really strikes me as being a dynasty team. I mean, you can't tell me it's the Bucks. Don't tell me that. They keep trying to resurrect these teams because the league has no talking points except for the goddamn superstars. And it's like,
yeah,
well, will the Lakers get it together? It's like, fuck, who cares about the Lakers?
Yeah, Milwaukee jumped up to 4 right now. They're 4 in the Eastern Conference. So
yeah, your audio is kind of getting wonky. You might want to check your connection on your end.
Okay, I'll try to sign back on.
Okay. The Wembanyama is a great young player, but is he going to still be in San Antonio by the time he realizes his full potential? I mean, and will they be able to draft people around him? The problem that's happening is the league is so bad right now. And it's the reason why the viewership is down low. The NBA doesn't want to talk about this, but it's the goddamn truth. There are more bozo, mediocre losing teams than there are good teams. You can't keep running Tuesday and Thursday basketball on TNT or wherever and just make it the same 4 or 5 teams every single time. That's lame. And you continue, Giannis this and Jokic that. And you could just, it's stupid. And they're still talking about Steph Curry. It's like, and John Moran took out a pistol and shot someone. I don't know. Does anybody believe that the Memphis Grizzlies, and they're going to be a high seed? That's not a great franchise, folks. And look how bad it is. Even J.B. Bickerstaff, the incompetent former head coach of the Cavaliers, who would not know offense if it bit him in the ass, has the Pistons winning with a winning record and in the fight for the playoffs. That's not because he's so good. It's because the league is so bad. They're terrible. Nobody wants to watch these teams. If you're an Atlanta Hawks fan, are you jubilant? I don't think so. And you're one of the better teams in the mediocre bunch. And then there's the other teams like the Raptors, who have suddenly started winning a few at least, but, find more ways to lose than they do to win. And they've only won like 10 or 11 games the entire season. There's a series of teams who are floating still close to single digit wins. It's not a strong league. So there's no dynasty teams going to be built. The Pistons are winning too much. And Cade Cunningham isn't going to be the guy who's going to bring them a championship, because you're not going to be able to draft guys. You see, in the old days, it was like you had to hit on the draft, but you had to have that big pick, like Cleveland got LeBron. And then even from there, it's not like we had big secondary superstars. We got Kevin Love, who is a legitimate NBA, solid, good player. But, I see Bronk is in. Hi, Bronk.
Boo.
Yeah. So, it's not like, it's not easy to have a dynasty team, and you need the big 3 now. And that did not work in Brooklyn, did it? The big 3. And they're trying to say the core 4 in Cleveland. It's like the thing that makes Cleveland a possible team that could be a dynasty team is because their players are 28 and younger. They're winning too much to get the big draft picks. They're going to have to rely on players wanting to come to Cleveland. And there is more of a desire for players to come to Cleveland now than at any other time. Another thing that I'm saying to all these negative Nelly Cavs fans: there are players who are playing in cities they're never going to win in. And when they see the Cavaliers at the top and they see their teams play against the Cavs and how good the Cavaliers are, they want to join up. They want to be part of a winning organization, not dumped off somewhere in Sacramento where you fire the guy who was the coach of the year 2 years ago and bring in Christie as your head coach, who's starting to win right now, but that's not going to last for long. And just rot to death in Sacramento, rot to death in Atlanta, rot to death in New Orleans, rot to death in Indiana. There are a lot of people with a lot of talent who would like to take their talents to Lake Erie. It's true. You talk to people who know, and they know that agents are jockeying and saying, we're open to something like that. And that would never have been the case before. But all these teams that are fighting for 500 records, they don't have a chance to become dynasty teams. It's the draft. They're going to be, 41 and 41, and that's not going to put them anywhere but way too high to get a solid draft pick. They would have to be absolute lucky to be able to build a team quickly that way. The Cavaliers, when LeBron left, they were able to bring on some people, and you brought in Darius Garland. You hit on Mobley, you get a star in Donovan Mitchell. That's how it works. And then you steal a guy who, whether you like Jared Allen or not, as far as whether he's aggressive enough or not, but you just literally took him away from the Nets. That's a huge start. Now what you have to do is take a look at where your team is and what you need to be to take what you need to do to take the next step. And to me, it's obvious what they need to do. They need to have people who can come off the bench and who can handle the ball and handle the kind of physicality. They also need a guy who is a solid physical player on the block. If Tristan Thompson, go away. I mean, nothing against Tristan, but he's old and he's small. You need somebody to get in there and rough it up a little bit, and you got to get a reputation that somebody on your team is the head cop in charge. And we don't have that. That's what's going to determine your success in the playoffs. So the organization has its work to do. There's no doubt about that. But I'm not at all. I sat and watched very impassively. I wasn't yelling at my TV. I was like, oh, the world's coming to an end. That wasn't the way I felt.
Well,
so what's new, Bronk?
What's new? My sleep pattern sort of changed. So I've missed the past 3 games. So I didn't see either of the Pacer games. And I was going to stay up and watch the game last night, but I fell asleep. So I missed the entire game. So what basically happened? For somebody who didn't watch the game but knows the team, give me like a 2-minute rundown of what happened and what do you think needs to change
in the Oklahoma City game?
Yeah, I mean,
look, it was. They played the game of the year for themselves. Okay. They're never going to play a better game. They couldn't. They played great defense. They were physical. They were motivated. Their bench contributed. They were really fired up. Cavaliers are in the middle of a road trip. And they just were hitting everything. Guys who were not that good of a distance shooter were firing them in. They just did everything right.
Yeah, because I saw that Hartenstein wasn't playing. So
no,
but
that allowed them to speed up the game. That allowed them to do the pressing stuff that I've been talking about the last couple of shows that teams are starting to do against the Cavaliers, because the Cavaliers do have a weakness, is that they don't have solid secondary ball handlers. And they have guys like the 2 big men can pass in the post.
Yeah.
And they have guys who can shoot from the wings. But the guys who shoot from the wings, whether it's Niang or whether it's Merrill or whether it's Strus, they're not good ball handlers. So, to me, what happened, and I was actually laughing during the game, it's like good for the Thunder, good for their fan base. They're getting the same raw deal that we're getting because nobody knows how good they're doing and how good they are. Let them have their moment on stage to shine. But the Cavaliers now have to know the teams are going to press them half court, full court. They're going to trap them, and the players have to do a better job of finding open men in the court and finding a way to pass their way to open shots. The way the Cavalanche begins is when you overplay somebody and an open man hits threes and it starts building up. And we've seen it all year. It never happened last night because we weren't getting the ball up the floor, and we were turning the ball over, and then they were turning them into easy points on the other end of the court.
Okay, well, who's the next game against? Because I don't even know that.
The Timberwolves in
Oh,
Minnesota.
right, Timberwolves. Yeah. Okay.
And, again, this is a learning experience. People, again, forget that nobody expected the Cavaliers to be 34-6. I mean, that's was not expected to be the case. And here we are. And you can't judge a team on one half of a season. You have to see what the strengths are, which have been evident in the course of the first half of the season, but you also are now getting to see what some of the weaknesses are. And if you don't have people helping you to bring the ball up the court, they're not down on the other end of the floor to be the open men who shoot the open threes for the Avalanche to begin. And so you're having a problem getting the ball up the floor. And teams who are overplaying that way, it may confuse a team for a while. But with the coach we have, who's a bright guy, and the players we have who are willing to listen, they'll figure out a way how to handle this. And when they do, they're going to make people pay because they're going to overcommit themselves defensively and they're not going to make it down the floor. And they're going to get bowled over just like we did with the Avalanche. That's what's happened all year. And it will happen to them as well, as long as we make adjustments.
So you're saying we need a backup point guard? You know, like somebody like Ricky Rubio or John Bagley, or I don't know who's out there now.
What I pointed out earlier before you got here is that Levert is not a good ball handler. Niang is not a good ball handler. Merrill is not a good ball handler. And these are your people who are, and Okoro is not a good ball handler.
Yeah, well, they're not point guards. None of them are.
But if they're going to trap your point guard coming up, you have to bring somebody down the goddamn floor to help them out. And there's no help coming from those players. They're getting planted down the other end of the floor and waiting for their opportunity for the point guard, Darius Garland or whatever, to break free and find one of them open on the wing so they can fire it up and the Avalanche begins. If the ball doesn't get over the midcourt cleanly and you have deflected passes, and the reason is if you just trap Darius Garland and he's not the biggest guy in the world, or you force him to throw the ball off, the way we've excelled this year is we start the game with our two guards, but in a lot of the instances, Darius is not on the floor at the same time as Mitchell is. So, during those times, and the first guard off the bench is Karis LeVert, and he's a scorer, but he's a sloppy ball handler. So what do you do when that happens? And the answer is you commit turnovers. So the Cavaliers, if you're saying, do we need a ball handler? I think the rotation has to put more emphasis on how many minutes Ty Jerome might play as opposed to somebody else like Sam Merrill, who's missing shots consistently, or Isaac Okoro, who can't hit the broadside of a barn since his shoulder injury. And you have to play players who are going to have impactful minutes. So I see more time for Ty Jerome to help them out of this. And Ty Jerome's a physical, gutty kind of guy. He can handle the ball and he can keep his head up and look for people who are open down the floor. And that's what it takes. And if you break that midcourt barrier, then the other team is immediately in a defensive deficiency on a numbers game. They're going to be, they're going to be 2-on-3. And that's the worst place to be against a team that is the number one three-point shooting team in the league. You don't want to be in that position. That's the position the Cavaliers have to put teams in who are willing to gamble and press like that. It's just not happening right now.
Right now, Ty Jerome's like the 10th guy at the moment. So if you're saying he should move up to 7th or the 6th guy, then they're going to have to redo their whole, rotation approach and their whole strategy, I think.
Not necessarily. What it tells me is who is able to play that kind of game. All right.
Yeah.
And the answer is a younger, energetic team, a team that has a more solid bench and that has boundless energy. I will tell you that the Thunder could not play at the pace that they played last night for half a season because they would just be crippled.
Die. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they would just be an oxygen debt. So again, you have to look at it from the big perspective, like, okay, in the narrow perspective, they played as great a game and as you could play. But in the big picture, it's like they can't consistently win like that against every team that they play because they will wear out. So they
Yeah.
have their own issues that they have to deal with, and we have ours. That's what competition is.
Well, you kind of pick and choose which is your important game and which is not your important game. Then, if that's what you're saying, because I think the way Atkinson is doing it, where no one's playing more than 32 minutes, is the way to go for the entire season, so that they get to the playoffs. But um, I don't know whether Jerome's like a sixth guy or seventh guy. I think he's effective playing against people that aren't that good.
Oh,
So
I
if
think
you
that he's played against people. He's a bench player, but I think he's played and he's proven that he can play pretty well against a wide range of people. And he's not afraid to play a physical brand of basketball.
Yeah,
And again, Karis LeVert relies on his long reach, his fadeaway. His offense is his defense to a large degree. He plays a lot of passing lane defense,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you
It
don't
gets a
want him
lot of
bringing the ball up the
knockdowns.
floor. He's long limbed, and this is very true that Mobley and Levert are both high dribblers. The only reason we have Mobley bringing the ball up is because it's a non-press situation, and he knows how to start the offense because he's a very good passer. But you don't want him bringing the ball up when then people are trapping and pressing. That's not a good idea.
Well,
So
teams can't trap and press the entire game; they'd be absolutely knackered. I mean that you got to pick how you're going to lose. I think at some point, and pick where you're going to lose.
Well,
Um,
I think it happens, and you know, could the United States against the Soviet Union recreate that hockey game?
no,
No. I mean,
no,
that's what history is. Is Buster Douglas going to go out and knock out Mike Tyson every time they fight? No.
absolutely
But
not.
what makes sports and it's adrenalizing for fans, it's what makes it fun to watch is when your team is just clicking on all cylinders and nothing can go wrong. And and I was laughing during the game and smiling. I was happy for the people in Oklahoma because since Kevin Durant blew out of town, they've had nothing to cheer about. God bless those people. They don't even yet know how to cheer. A lot of those people, they look like they came back from a roping competition to watch the
Oh, the
game.
rodeo, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and they pump in more noise into the arena, but these people, they got to get the blood flowing, man. That was a great performance. And I was all smiles because the better team won. Just like the last time they played, the better team won. And that's the beauty of it. Coaching, strategy, night to night changes, what players you have, what players you don't have that night. It's like a chess match. And that's what's so fun to watch. So,
Yeah. Well, I don't. Like I said, I'd have more to say if I'd actually seen the past three games, but I haven't. So,
yeah.
but
And, yeah, everyone talks about a 6'8" plus wing defender. They're going to name Cam Johnson is what the Cavaliers need. But, you have to, yeah, look at what you'd have to give up. And that's the hard part about all this right
yeah,
now.
absolutely. You don't want to break up this team, really, do
That's
you?
right. I mean, they're 34-6, and because of one fucking game?
It'd
Ah,
be it'd be silly to break them up, particularly, you bring somebody new in. Are they going to have the right temperament to play with the other 10 guys that they're going to be playing with? And you really don't know that in this day and age, unless you really know the personalities. If other people on the team can say, Yeah, I played with him. He's not a douchebag, you know? That's the thing. I mean, you trade two of these guys away and get somebody else in, it could be very destructive. And
Yeah,
that's what.
and I was sorry to hear Bob Euchre passing. I think we all were. There was a
Oh,
guy
have you
who,
seen that photo? The St. Louis Cardinals team photo, where Euchre and Bob Gibson are holding hands and smiling, and they nearly released that to everybody, but then they they caught it and then they had to redo it. It is absolutely hilarious. It was great.
yeah, he made a hell of a name for himself, and he lived to be 90 years old.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
and the other joke, he did one baseball card where he was a right-handed hitter, and he posed as a left-hander, and no one spotted that either. His baseball card. So if you got that one
now who
lying
is
around,
Chris Martin?
he's the guy on Coldplay.
Should we let him in the on the show to see if he's
I don't know.
for
He might
real?
have Gwyneth Paltrow trying to, oh God, I'm not even to say what I was going to say.
Hey, Chris, why don't you flash yourself on cam so I can see who you are? That would be very
So you got,
helpful. Hey, there he is. He flashed
wow.
himself. All right, let's see. Let's put him in. All right, Chris, you're on the air. What do you have to say for yourself?
Uh, Hi, I got a 2-year-old toddler, and my wife is still working from home right now. So if you hear craziness in the background, that's what that is. But I just
Okay.
briefly wanted to mention that I like your show very much. I think your takes are pretty much on par. As far as the Cleveland Browns go, I also have decided I'm done with them. I think I'm going to become a Bills fan, but staying centered on the Cavs stuff because I'm the biggest Cavs fan you will know. Um, or I was going to ask you, what do you think it would take for the Cavaliers to get a real three, a real small forward 3-and-D guy, kind of like they keep talking about Cam Johnson that plays for the Nets, and I don't know if we're going to be able to even have enough to get that guy, but everyone's talking about how he'd be the perfect fit, and that was the question I wanted to ask you.
I think the perfect fit is predicated on that right now. Our guys are starting to trail off in shooting threes, and I don't think that it would be possible for them to continue to shoot threes at the rate that they have over the course of the first half of the season. But with Cam Johnson, he has a feathery touch from the outside, and he does have length. What would it mean? What would we have to give up? Therein lies the big problem. If you are a team that has really a core three with Mitchell, Garland, and Mobley, and I really believe, and I was disappointed in the game that Mobley played yesterday. He did not look aggressive, and he needs to realize fully that he is as much a star on this team as Donovan Mitchell. And you can't sit and when times are tough and turn around and look at Mitchell and say, "Come on, man, you got to carry us." I think that we're seeing signs from Mobley at 23 years of age that he is going to become a monster player. But these guys are young, and you have to add pieces that aren't just what do we do to get better right this moment, but that keep the ball rolling, because you want to be a meaningful team in the future. Donovan Mitchell made a commitment to the team, so we're going to have him for a couple of more years. So, and Darius Garland is proving himself after a difficult season filled with injuries and some weight loss and all kinds of stuff. And he's proving himself, and Mobley is really coming on strong. And there are a lot of people, and myself included, who wondered if Jared Allen was going to get his act together and that he could be possible trade bait. But you're going to have to give up something to get a Cam Johnson. And there are like 2 or 3 teams of the league who are willing to be higher bidders, from what I've heard inside, than what the Cavaliers would be. You can't, for me personally, I don't think Karis LeVert is ever going to be the kind of winning player that you would want him to be. The thing about him is that he is what my old friend Ben used to call a chucker. He's a guy who can put points in off the bench. He's not always the greatest field goal shooter, and he's trying hard, and he's worked hard at playing hard and doing better defensively than what he's done in the past. But he's a guy who could average 20, 22 a night for a lesser team, but he would be a volume shooter. He's not going to, get what you're looking for to get a higher end player. As far as Okoro is concerned, Amsterdam and Chris, I'm still talking to you too. Isaac Okoro is a guy who has not proven himself, and he tried the waters in free agency and nobody bit. The reason we got him back for the deal that we got him for is that nobody else wanted him. And you're seeing now that his shot is flat again. Can't shoot.
Can't shoot.
I mean, he needs a GPS out there. He was airballing shots and line driving shots. It makes you wonder if his shoulder is still not right, or if the up tempo of the game, he has to stop and set and shoot and, have every mechanical advantage to get the ball to go in. And he isn't driving to the basket and finishing at the basket like he did when he was younger. You're not going to get nothing for Okoro and LeVert. There's no market for that to give up when another team is to give up picks. And if you're the Cavaliers, your picks are not going to be. When you're 34-6, you've been a winning team the last 2 years, and you've got the best record this year. You're not going to have a high pick. So it's kind of like a straitjacket to be in. And I don't know the answer to your question, Chris, because you have to weigh things over. You tear the team apart in some way, and they have such good fellowship between them, then do you really hurt the attitude of the players? I mean, this is a decision that, as a business decision, is a real sticky wicket. I don't know the answer, but I think that now what they have to do is they have to have a better backup ball handler on the floor, because every team is going to just run bench at them and just press. And if you can steal the ball and just end up 2-on-1 at the other end and dunk them in.
The blueprint has been showed, unfortunately.
Yes. Unfortunately, that is the case. But, nobody, it was like what they've said with fighters. His weakness is, and the idea is you get back in the gym, you get back in sparring, and you work on your weakness. And that's what you have to do. And that's what it is for the Cavaliers right now. If there's a weakness there, they have to shore it up. And I don't see that that's like bringing in a 6'8" guy from Brooklyn and saying, here you go. I think the team needs to have, and I'm going to give you an example of a guy like Lou Dort, who is their fire plug defensively. He plays physical basketball. When he's fired up, you saw what happened with the Thunder. He got them really into a state of frenzy. You need to have a player who the players have that player's back, and they know that player's job is just to be tough. Not the most skilled player in the world, but just a tough guy who will play the tough, dirty defense, get the important rebound when you need to, or unlike Isaac Okoro, where you get scorelessness, he's not even playing great defense this year, and that was his calling card.
Yeah,
and
he's dropped off.
Yeah. So again, you need somebody who, I would say, somebody who helps the defense become a stopper, and somebody who appeals to the camaraderie on the team and contributes in a different way than just a Cavalanche.
Well, we don't really have a Dellavedova type of player anymore on the team, or Chetty Osmond. I'm not suggesting we should go back to that either, but it's
I'll
a
tell you
tough
who,
one.
who a good backup guard in the league is TJ McConnell. And he's a guy who can't shoot a three to save his soul. But if you look what he does for the Pacers, he's a good passer. He can penetrate. He has a sneaky little inside bank shot, and he gets the ball into the hands of the right person. That's the kind of player that should be a backup point guard, because he's not very big, and that would be the weakness, but he can skedaddle around people and avoid pressure, and
Right.
he's a good passer. That's what's going to help the Cavaliers out of this problem that they currently have right now.
It's like Chris is going away, but
Yeah. I think he's as confused about this as I am. I don't have an answer for all these things. It's relatively new, and I'm going to think about it and see, because right now isn't the time to make a drastic,
oh God,
just
no.
kind of
I think any
grab.
sort of trade right now would be more destructive than what it's worth. I mean, and Pritchard, I mean, he's hot and cold. I mean, he can really hit threes when he's in a good mood. But the Celtics have played some stinker games. I mean, where they're getting 90 points and getting their ass kicked. So, I mean, they're still 6 games back of us, I think. So,
Yeah. I mean, and we're coming toward the end of the program, and I wanted to make this a Cavaliers show because of last night's game, and not in a critical way, but in a constructive kind of way. Chris lost his connect.
well, you're breaking up on me.
I
I
am.
don't know whether, yeah, you are. I don't know whether I wouldn't have thought it's my end.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm actually seeing an ingestion problem right now.
You're breaking
That
up.
just showed
You're
up.
breaking up, Captain. We can't hold it
Yeah.
any longer.
Oh well, that's life in the big
Well,
city.
that's
I'm
what
about
happens
ready
when
to,
you go to warp speed,
yeah, I'm ready to finish anyway.
your shields,
But I wanted to end on a positive note rather than Bob Euchre. ESPN's Dick Vitale is going to call
Dickie
his
V,
first
yeah.
game after beating cancer for the 4th time.
Oh, wow.
I don't like to use the word beating, but
I don't
forestalling.
either, but he had it in
the-
his vocal cords, so didn't he? I mean, how can he talk with
I don't know.
we'll find out.
He's going to call the Duke Wake Forest game Saturday, January 25th. If you want to tune in, he's 85 years old now.
Yeah,
God bless him.
And
I'll tell you something right now, and I'm trying to say what I might sound like today, because my walk-in closet is still
bigger.
bigger than your great room and living room combined.
Absolutely.
You notice how I'm sounding a little bit older now?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, that's because I'm older.
Diaper dandy.
Yeah.
No longer.
And this is probably the best point of all. The Celtics don't care if they finish first. That's right.
Yeah, because they know how to win the championship through the playoffs.
Second season. That's what it's all about.
They know how to do it. We don't know how to do that yet.
So all right. Well, I am finished, and I'm going to
go back
on.
and hear what you said. Well,
I'll do it for Richard. Get a TO, baby. Get a TO.
Wow.
Who's the cheerleader with the big tits? I'm telling you, I wouldn't mind putting my face in between those puppies.
You know what the amazing thing is it's still fucking college football season. Just make it stop already. I can't believe there's going to be a new president and they're still playing college football. It's wrong.
I know. Well, money. It's a rich man's world. All right, Bronk, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Chris, for jumping in. Chris, don't be a stranger. Come back in here.
He sounded like a potentially intelligent panelist.
I like that.
That's very rare.
Yeah, that's right. So Mondays and Fridays, that's when we're at 5 o'clock. That's where we be. So if you're in the neighborhood, stop by again. We love to hear
You'll
from
have
you.
to mood the next time he's on. But
And Stephen went away and didn't come back, so I don't know what's up with that.
I
So
don't know.
yeah, I need to take a shower. I think that's what it is.
Oh, I had one earlier. It was great. It was fantastic.
Well,
I
I'm
got a
glad to hear
chair in
that.
my shower so I don't fall over. When you get old, you need a chair in the shower.
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about not having a chair in there. I mean, I was
It's a
thinking
shower chair. It's not a
yeah,
chair.
what I have is a
A hoist.
nozzle. I have the regular shower head, and then I
Right.
have the hand nozzle, and that's
Oh,
where
yeah, the hand
Topaz
nozzle.
gets his bath.
Right.
But it has a bar that I can hold on to. So if and whenever I'm on a wet surface, man, it's like
I
I'm gonna
could
hold
I
that
could
bar.
fall over for England, so that's why I have a chair. So
I feel like I'm in a strip club, and I'm naked, and they
oh
start doing the dance.
Jennifer Beals
What a
flash
feeling!
dance. Yeah, what a feeling.
I wouldn't mind had a feeling of that. All right. So thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in. And don't be hard on the Cavaliers, man. They're going to be hard on themselves. Let's see if they can bounce back and recover on the back end of the road trip and get themselves back together again.
Yeah, I want to hear from Tony the Calf when we pound the Timberwolves. That's
Well,
always
if we do, it's all about how they come out and what the mindset is. And we're going to see what our team is made of. And that's the way it should be. All right, Bronk, thanks for joining us. And thanks to everybody else. And I will be back again on Monday. And until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.